Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rod. This is Saturday night, and we're having a private call here. We didn't make it last Friday night. Internet was down. But I'm going to have a call here tonight. There seems to be some misunderstanding on what we're doing in this traffic case in North Carolina. What is the big picture on this traffic case? This is not just about the driver's license. It's not just about the CDL or the commercial motor vehicle license. It's just not about that. It is the extent to the fraud that the courts will go to in order to sit here and cover up their corruption. A few people, I've gotten a phone call that has realized that this thing on this traffic issue is not just about the license. It's about setting the system up for a lawsuit. That if you understand my paperwork, if you understand what we've been explaining on the calls about the Highway Safety Act under Title 23, USC Code under 402, the Highway Safety Act under Title 23, CFR under 1327, and Section 1250, 40% to the political subdivision. What impact does this have? What does this really mean? Well, it's what we're coming back in and we're proving within the courts. By going through the administrative court on this and bringing in the DOT, Department of Transportation, and the tag agency and the law enforcement, which is your police officers from Highway Patrol to your county to your local police, whenever the Attorney General has come in and say, these are private contractors. They are private entities. They do not belong to the state. All this is coming in and showing what so many of you have been talking about is the fact that these are private corporations. Let me read something here to you. It's under Federal Statutes, Title 49. Title 49, Subtitle 1, Chapter 1, 102, Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation is an executive department of the United States government at the seat of government. Department of Transportation is an executive department of the United States government, not corporation, government at the seat of government. When we're talking that we have an agency that is supposed to be part of the government, and they're handing out driver's licenses. This is where there's Title 49, Subtitle 6, Part B, Chapter 313, Section 31, 301, Definitions, Commerce, Mean, Trade, Traffic, Transportation. And it gets into the weight of the vehicles for driver's licenses. Driver's license means a license issued by a state to an individual authorizing the individual to operate a motor vehicle on the highway. Employee means an operator of commercial motor vehicle, including an independent contractor when operating a commercial motor vehicle, who is employed by an employer. Employer means a person, including the United States government, a state, or a political subdivision of a state that owner or lease a commercial motor vehicle or assign employees to operate a commercial motor vehicle. Ladies and gentlemen, what this is getting into and what we have been doing, we're not only exposing the fact that you and I are not required to have a driver's license according to their laws, because we have to be dealing in commerce. We are exposing the fact that they're using this in a means that they are not giving the money to the political subdivision. They're embezzling it. And the way they're embezzling it is by claiming that these are not public offices, but private contractors. Therefore, because the money may come into the state, because they're claiming their corporate status as private contractors, the political subdivision is not getting their share of the federal funding. This opens this whole thing up into a whole new realm for a lawsuit. This is what we're trying to get in, trying to get you people to understand. There's a lot bigger issue here, a lot bigger issue. This isn't just about driver's licenses. This is about exposing the fraud that the court is doing in order to hide that federal funding. And to the extent that they're willing to hide the federal funding. Right now, in this lawsuit that we have, that I've got against North Carolina, the way this thing is set up, it's taken me a year to lay the paperwork out, to lay out the groundwork. I did not know how the state was going to come back on the paperwork. I didn't know how they was going to answer it. I was testing the water. When they came in and they declared themselves to be private entities out of the administrative court, and the Attorney General's office has put in that they are private contractors, and the city law director, they are private contractors. That means that these police officers out here on the road are private contractors. They're not classified as public officials when they drag you into their standard court in your community. Because the judge will say, this is an upstanding public office, these are public officials. Well, administrative court says, no, they're not, they're private contractors. Now we've got a conflict. Now this does not just apply to highway. It does not just apply to them pulling you over. A police officer is a police officer, is a police officer, is a police officer. Whether he is coming with child services to take your children, whether he is pulling you over on a traffic violation, whether they are kicking in your door. The court has classified them as private contractors. They are not part of the state. This opens up a big lawsuit across this country. The fact that this came out of an administrative court holds more standing, it holds more merit than it would if it came out of a county court. Because this is an administrative issue, this dealt with administrative agencies, administrative departments. So when you have an administrative court coming in and defining these people as private contractors, non-public officials. Now, when they're classifying the Department of Transportation as a non-public office, the tag agency as a non-public office, then that means that they're running every single agency through that state as a private contract setup, non-public officials. Some of you are not aware back in 2006 that there was a class action lawsuit against the court system. The 10th Circuit Court ruled that all of these public officials were corporate appellees. They belonged to the corporation. They were not public officials. Therefore, the court cannot hold them to violation of their oath of office because they're not public officials. They're playing the other side of the fence. They're doing what we've been trying to do. I am not that person coming into the courtroom. I am the living man coming into that courtroom. What the system has done is they're sitting here saying, these are not public officers, they are not public officials, but they hold position as private contractors, and therefore the administrative court has no subject matter jurisdiction over private people. They would only have it only public officials. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're exposing in this case. It's not just about the driver's license. It is about the means of how we're coming in and proving the fact that they are coming in and stating they're not public officials. They're private contractors. Well, fine. If you're a private contractor, then you can't pull me over. You can't kick in my door. You can't sit on that bench because we hired public officials. I didn't hire a private contractor. You can't misuse my money. So the fact of the Highway Safety Act being on this is a very important issue because now we have them in tax fraud on this. We have them in abuse of tax fraud because what this gets into under the Highway Safety Act, what it sits here and says under Title 23 USC Code, Highway Safety Program. Each state shall have a highway safety program approved by the Secretary designed to reduce traffic accidents and death, injuries, and property damage resulting therefrom. Such program shall be in accordance with uniform guidelines by the Secretary. Such uniform guidelines shall express in terms the performance criteria, and additional such uniform guidelines shall include programs, administration for the state program, administrative requirements. All right. The Secretary may not approve a safety highway program under this section which does not provide that the governor of the state shall be responsible for the administration of the program through a highway safety program agency, which shall have adequate power to be suitably equipped and organized to carry out to the satisfaction of the Secretary's program. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, it sits here and shows the moment they sit here and say, well, we are private contractors, we're not part of the administration, they violated the agreement under the Highway Safety Act. Okay, now we're getting into Title 23 CFR under Section 1250. Political subdivisions participate in state highway safety program. Political subdivisions participating in state highway programs. The purpose of this part is to provide guidelines to determine whether a state is in compliance with the requirements at least 40% of all federal funding portions under Section 23 USC Code 402 will be extended by political subdivisions of each state. There is the issue right there. They're not doing it. They're not giving it. If we could get the mayors, get them to understand this, the mayors of every town, your city council, your county commissioners, if they would go back to the governor's office and say, hey, wait a minute, we just found out that we were supposed to be getting 40% off of all these traffic violations. We had these many tickets in our town. We've had these many tickets on the county. Why did we not get our share of the federal funding? The state is going to have a real problem with this, and so is the courts, because now the county commissioners and the city council can now go back to that judge and say, hey, you were aware of this. You and the prosecutor both. Why were you not looking out after the interest of this community? Why didn't you help us to get this money? Where is this money at? Now they've got this judge and the prosecutor for embezzling money out of their own community. they got accountability here. This thing is not just about the driver's license. The fact that we could prove it now, because right now, as it stands, everybody in this country, if you will understand my paperwork, and you will take the time to comprehend the paperwork, and get rid of the narrow-mindedness of some of what you're doing here, get out of the box. At this point in time, the hearing that I had last Monday, with what happened and transpired in it, this judge in Raleigh has 5 choices. 5. That's all he has. 1, if he remands it back down to the administrative court saying, hey, these are public offices, Mr. Klass did bring it into the right court. The prosecutor, the Attorney General's office never rebutted the laws. They never rebutted the facts or the conclusions. The Attorney General's office is that we are not public officials. We're private contractors. If this thing got remanded back down, the court can only hear what the argument was at that time. The Attorney General's office cannot come back in and rebut. Therefore, what I put in has to stand. They have to rule on that. We're not required. So not only do I have a lawsuit for civil rights violations, so do all of you people. Not just in North Carolina, across this country, because they made a ruling. They're private contractors. They made a ruling that if they come back in on this, that you and I are not qualified, we have them. If the judge, number two, if he comes in and he says they are private contractors and that they are not part of the state, now we have them under color of law. We got them under a Title 42, 1983 lawsuit. Because now we have private contractors operating under color of law, handing out state property such as tags, registrations, licenses, titles, handing this stuff out in violation of the very state law that sits down and says there's only 2 types of driver's licenses. That's the second option. We still have a lawsuit. If the judge sits here and he signs my order, we still have a lawsuit. Because if he signs my order, then he admits that the political subdivision should have been receiving the 40% of their federal funding. He admits that we aren't qualified to have the driver's license because they misused this law, so you still have a lawsuit. That's 3. Number 4, if the judge recuses himself, like Judge Manning did, we still have a lawsuit under color of law because now we have a second judge walking off the bench, refusing to hold the state accountable. He now violates Title 18, Section 4, misprision of felony. He was made aware of a crime. He was made aware of corruption, and he did nothing. He now violates Title 18, Section 3. He's now an accessory. Not only that, by him recusing himself, he has now violated the Honest Service Clause of Title 18, 1346. He's also violated Title 18, 1621 under perjury. He took a false oath. He had no intentions of upholding his oath. He's violated Title 18, 1918 of disloyalty. He now overthrew a form of government by not following the laws. All right? He has also violated Title 18, 241, 242, civil rights violation under color of law. He also has violated Title 18, Chapter 115, 2382 to 2387 for insurrection, rebellion, sedition, treason. All of this is what he has violated. if he recuses himself. Number 5, if they come to me, and that's why I'm putting this on the air, if they come to me and say, Mr. Klass, we cannot allow you at this point to continue this lawsuit to a closing because you will now set case precedents if you do. Ladies and gentlemen, we've already set case precedents. We've already got them to admit they're not public officials, they're private contractors. That's what I'm sitting down saying. The first 4, ladies and gentlemen, you've already got a lawsuit. If you understand the paperwork, you understand what I did, you've already got the lawsuit. So if they come in and I settle out, the door is still open for you people to follow right in behind what I did. We set them up. We have the documentation. It's on the website. It's on that rodclassteam.com. It's on the website. This is not just about the license. It was about the license and the federal funding. It was all about proving the corruption. This is what my paperwork is all about. It's about proving corruption on their side of the fence. Some of you people are under the misunderstanding that my paperwork is supposed to come in, and the moment this paperwork hits the court, the judge is going to jump up and scream, says, "Oh my God, I have to follow the law. I have to do what I'm told. It's been exposed that I'm corrupt. Oh my God." That's what you people are trying to, and that ain't going to happen. We got some judges that do dismiss the case. We got other judges that they're diehards. The point is that we are exposing their corruption. We are broadcasting it out over the internet. We're posting the paperwork all across the internet. And the reason why we're doing it is to get more exposure, to where more and more people see what is going on, to where more and more agencies and different parts of the government is coming in and saying, "Oh, crap, they're exposing the corruption. We did not know that the lower system was being this blatant about this, and now we're exposing it." Because when they're skimming off the top before they give it up, and we're now exposing the fact that they're skimming, it's going to come back and bite them. Like I said, right now, the way this thing is set up, if every mayor in this country, every city council, every county commissioner would sit back and go to the state and say, "Hey, where is my share of the Highway Safety Act? Why haven't we got it?" They go to the judge, and they corner this judge. They corner the prosecutor. They're not going to be able to have any answers. These people won't have their jobs very long. We're going to start seeing a change of events, but it takes you and I to go do this. It takes us to go back in and expose this. This is where the issue coming in. This is what I am doing with all my paperwork. This is what the IRS case is. It is the fact that we're coming in and we are exposing the corruption. We're sitting here showing where it's wrong, how it's wrong, where it's wrong. This is where and what it is all about. It's about sitting here exposing their corruption. And the more people that will start understanding about their corruption, and the more of this stuff that starts getting out, the sooner we're going to be able to start fixing this. Because once they start realizing that they can't keep embezzling the way they have been, they're going to start losing their jobs over this, and they're going to start being prosecuted. That's what's going on here in California with this prosecutor out there in California. He's bringing in and he's showing where the judges are getting more than their wages, where they're making money on the side. This is where the CAFRA account comes in, that second set of books. This is where the money's coming in. So we're sitting on, right now, I'm sitting on 3 documents. We're sitting on the 10th Circuit that admitted that these people are corporate appellees. We're sitting on the paperwork from this administrative court, from this law judge, sitting here saying they're private contract or private entities. We're sitting on the paperwork from the Attorney General's office and the city law director sitting here saying that they're private contractors. They're non-public officials. I've got a 4th document that we got another ruling from another judge on the administrative court, which I can't post yet because there is a case pending on it. But I've got another case where another administrative law judge has come back in and again has stated that the police department and these people are not public officials. They're private contractors. They don't work for the state. Now, I was told that we need to find proof. And I've talked to a couple of people, and they sit down, they've heard this before, that the police department is being paid by outside assistance, such as maybe another corporation like Kellogg's or Ford or IBM, where they're getting their paycheck from a private contractor source, not from the city. If we can go back and prove that, and we can get that information that sits here and shows that the police department is receiving paychecks from other than the state or the city, now we would have the hard evidence and proof that backs up, yeah, they are private contractors. And if they are private contractors, they cannot stop us out here on the road. They cannot break into our homes. They can't arrest anybody. This whole case in North Carolina on the driver's license was to sit back and push the issue of the driver's license, but also to sit down and see how the state would sit down and come back with a response. Because we know they're not going to be honest about it. We know they're going to lie. They're going to sit here and cheat, and they're going to falsify documentation. So even though that the law sits here and says they're jumping on the fact that we're private contractors. We are a private corporation, and you cannot sue us as a private corporation. Well, I can when you're in violation of your own state laws. When you're violating the laws that you're supposed to be upholding. That's the issue we put before the court. But ladies and gentlemen, every single one of you, if you can understand the paperwork that we're doing, understand the Coram Nobis paperwork, understand the judicial notices that we're putting in, understand the IRS filing, understand the traffic filing. Every one of these documentation goes in and addresses the fact of their corruption. No one else out here is coming in and trying to address their corruption. Nobody. Ewing and all these other people out here, all they're trying to do is just get them off the hook. Get you off the hook. Leave the corruption where it's at. Let them stay corrupt, but get us off the hook. It's only a matter of time before they come back and bite you. You want to fix the problem, we have to get rid of the corruption. That's all there is to it. There's no other way of solving this problem. You can't sit here and get yourself out and leave them, because it's only going to be a matter of time before they come back to you and knock on your door. This is why, with what I do, the paperwork for AIB Radio, we hand you the laws. We hand you the statutory side of this thing. This is what we're trying to explain. This is what we're trying to get into. This is why it is so important that you sit down and understand. Under Title 49, Subtitle 6, Part B, Chapter 331, subject to this section and availability of amount, the Secretary of Transportation may make grants to the state for the development or implication of programs for improvement of motor carrier safety and the enforcement of regulations, standards, and orders of the United States government, not corporation, United States government, on commercial motor vehicles, hazardous material, transportation safety, compatible state regulations, standard, and orders, state plan of procedures and content. The Secretary shall prescribe procedures for a state to submit a plan under which the state agrees to assume responsibility for improving motor character safety and adopt the enforcement regulations, standards, and orders of the government on commercial motor vehicle safety, hazard material, transportation safety, or compatible state regulations, standard, and order. The Secretary shall approve the plan if the Secretary decides the plan is adequate to promote the object of this section in the plan. Right there, ladies and gentlemen, it says government. Don't say corporation. It says government. Commercial motor vehicle. Under Title 49, Subtitle 6, Part B, Chapter 13, under 313. Regulations prescribed by the Secretary of Transportation to carry out this chapter, except Section 31307, shall be prescribed under Section 553 of Title 5. Title 5 is government. It's agencies, without regards to Section 556 and 557 of Title 5. Title 5 is government. It's not corporation. This is what we're sitting here explaining. They are trying to sit down and run this on the private side when they're supposed to be on the public side. Title 49, Subtitle 3, Chapter 51, 5123, Civil Penalties, Hearing Requirement. The Secretary may find that a person has violated this chapter or a regulation prescribed or ordered. Special permits or approval issues under this chapter only after notice and opportunity for a hearing. The Secretary shall impose a penalty. The Secretary shall impose in penalties under this section by giving the person written notice of the amount of the penalties. The Secretary, it does not say judge, it says Secretary. This is an administrative issue. Penalties consideration is determine the amount of civil penalties under this section. The Secretary shall consider the nature, circumstances, extent, and gravity of the violation. With respect to the violation, the degree, any history of prior violations, the ability to pay, and any effectiveness or the ability to continue to do business. Okay? Now, under Title 49, Subtitle 3, Chapter 51, 5127, judicial review, filing, and venue, except as provided in Section 20114C, a person adversely affected or aggrieved by the final action of the Secretary, of the Secretary, of the Secretary, of the Secretary, not a judge, of the Secretary, under this chapter may petition for review of the final action of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia or in a Court of Appeals of the United States for the circuit in which the person resides or has been principally place of business. The petition must be filed not more than 60 days after the Secretary action becomes final. Not the judge, the Secretary. This is what I'm sitting here saying, people. I'm not trying to be belligerent here. You have to realize their own statutes say the Secretary has to be the one that pulls your driver's license. The Secretary is the one that has to sit here and makes the decision. It takes a judicial review judge, an administrative judge, to reinstate your driver's license. Judicial procedure. When a petition is filed under subsection A, the clerk of the court immediately shall send a copy to the petition to the Secretary. The Secretary shall file with the court a record of any proceeding in which the final action was issued as provided under Section 2112 of Title 28. Authority of the court. The court has exclusive jurisdiction as provided in subchapter 2 of chapter 5 of title 5 to affirm or set aside any part of the secretary final's action and make order the secretary conduct further proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's all about. It's exposing their fraud on this thing. It is not about the court sitting here doing it. It is the fraud that's being committed. It takes the Secretary of Transportation to deal with these issues, not the local yokel court system. This is where the fraud's coming in. This is why they're turning around and embezzling the money, because it's not going through the proper procedure. This is one of the big issues. Like I said, Ewing, as good as his paperwork is, he fell short. He fell short. He was not going after the bigger picture. He was not going after the system. He was only trying to sit down and use a little portion to just get by on. We're trying to go after the whole system. That's what I'm sitting here saying. If you understand my paperwork, if you understand what we're doing, each and every one of you right now has the ability to come in and go file a lawsuit in the federal court for a civil rights violation. Every single one of us has that authority. I do not have to finish out this court case. People wonder why this court case has taken so long. Why am I dragging it out? Because it took me this long to get the evidence off of their side to get it confirmed more than once. I got 3 hearings where it is confirmed they are private contractors. We got 3 hearings. We've got an administrative judge saying they are private entities, non-public officials. I'm in this 3rd court. This judge has not made a decision. It doesn't matter what he makes. We already have the foundation. The proof is already there. They're not running us through proper procedures. They're not taking us through the proper channels. We have federal funding fraud involved. This is a lot bigger issue than a driver's license. The driver's license was the foundation that created the problem in order for me to drag it in to expose all of this. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm sitting here saying. All the stuff that we're coming in and that we're doing, we are proving the fact that driver's licenses are commercial. We're proving the fact it takes the Secretary of Transportation. This is the issue. They're not doing it right. We're not saying that they can't hand out driver's licenses. They most certainly can. A CDL. They have to hand out a CDL. A CDL driver's license, a license issued by the state to an individual who resides in the state that authorized the individual to drive a class of commercial motor vehicle. And it gets in. It talks about the weight. A commercial motor vehicle, any of the following motor vehicles that are designed and used for transportation of passengers or property. Passengers. And it gets in and explains that a passenger is someone that sits here and pays for hire, a taxi cab. Not you and your wife, not you and your children. They're taking this stuff all off context. This is what we're addressing here. This is the way we're coming back in, and we're hammering them on this stuff. You have to understand that this is a lot bigger picture. It is not just about the driver's license. It is about the federal funding fraud. It is about the money that's being embezzled. It is the means of the money that the courts are using and siphoning off instead of giving it to the political subdivisions for them to have their fire department and have some of the better police departments. This is a bigger issue than this, a lot bigger issue. And some of this, a lot of you have not comprehended, and it's not going through your head of what we're sitting here talking about. It's not just about the license. It is about the massive fraud that's being placed on this country and the amount of federal funding that is being embezzled by the court systems. Because it clearly sits here and shows you, under that Title 49, it takes the secretary to sit down and pull your driver's license. It takes the secretary to bring the claim. It takes a judicial review judge to go back over and read it and see if there was an error and for you to present your evidence before that court. It isn't a local judge pulling your license. It isn't the local police officers. It takes a DOT officer to go do this. This is a federal issue. Why do you think they're sitting here telling you? For you to come back in and run this into the system, you have to take this before the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia or an appeals court for the circuit for which you reside in. It takes a federal court to restate your driver's license, not the local court system. It's right here under Title 49, Subtitle 3, Chapter 51, 5127, Judicial Review. Title 49, Subtitle 3, Chapter 51, 5123, Civil Penalties. Ladies and gentlemen, right there's your paperwork. Right there's the proof of what we're talking about. This is not just about the driver's license. It's about the massive fraud that's being perpetrated on the people. Like I said before, this judge has five ways that he can handle this. If he remands it back down, because they are public officials, the Attorney General's office in North Carolina can't file any more paperwork in because he already sit here and said they're non-public officials and they've already got overruled. The court has to rule on my decision. We all have a lawsuit on that. If the judge remands it, sits here and says that they are private contractors, now we have them under color of law. If the judge recuses himself, we have them under color of law because they've already made a ruling. They're not public officials. If he sits there and they come to me and say, Rod, let's settle this. You people still have the ability because you've already have the proof of all of this. If they sign my paperwork, all of you, and I still have a lawsuit for civil rights violation, it doesn't matter which one they take. All five positions allows us to bring a lawsuit against them in every single state. That is the biggest picture that a lot of the people have missed out on this show. You're not looking at the bigger picture. You're only looking at the driver's license issue. You're not looking at the position of them being sued for handing you something that they cannot hand you, and the fact that we've gotten courts sitting here saying they're non-public officials. That's the biggest issue. That's what a lot of people are missing. We need to get out of this little box that we got our head in. We need to understand the bigger picture on this. The fact that they are admitting that the police officers are private contractors, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this goes across the board. Not just on traffic, it deals with every single police officer, whether they're sheriff, whether they're state. It even comes down to the FBI. It comes down to the federal marshals. They're classified as private contractors. They're law enforcement. The system is turning aside of sitting here saying, oh, well, we're private contractors. We're a private corporation on this side of the fence, and you can't hold us accountable. Nobody else out here has ever got them to admit that they're private contractors. We've got that 10th Circuit Court ruling that says they are private corporate appellees. We got the paperwork from this, and they're saying they're private entities, private contractors. Nobody else has been able to pull this information. Nobody's else been able to go back and prove that they're private contractors. We have. I have pushed the issue on this. This thing is laid open for all of us, if you understand the paperwork, to go back and sue them. That's what this whole thing has been all about, is set them up so you can go back and sue them. Nobody has set up a court case, not Ewing, not David Clarence, not Richard Cornforth. None of these people have set up a court case that would allow you to come back in and go sue these people. All they're trying to do is get you off the hook. You don't want off the hook. You want them on the hook. You want to expose this corruption. You want to open this thing up for them. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what we're doing. We're exposing. We're opening up the door. The paperwork is out there. All you have to do is understand the paperwork. All you have to do is comprehend what we're doing and get out of your box and get rid of the attitude and get rid of the egos and start looking at this on a bigger realm. We don't want a class action lawsuit, because once you do a class action lawsuit, they shoot it down, it's done and over with. You want to do this on your individual capacities. You want to go in by yourself and go do this. Because if you do a class action, they shut it down. You got to play hard to go back and bring this thing back in again. But like I said, by going back in and getting the city council to understand, getting county commissioners to understand, they can bring a suit against the state. They can also bring a suit against the judges and the prosecutors. The federal system actually has the authority right now to come back in here and go investigate all this federal funding fraud. Whether they will or not, I don't know. It depends on how much noise we make. It depends on how much we push it. But everything we've done was to sit here and open this thing up for all of you people who have the ability to understand, to go back in and nail these suckers. Nobody else has took the time to lay the groundwork down that I've laid. Everybody's trying to take the shortcut. Everybody's trying to come back in. I'm a man on the land, I am a child of God, and I am a sovereign citizen. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with they're not following their procedures, they're not following their rules, they're not following their regulations. The statutory law is their guidelines on how they took that office. And it's how they're supposed to apply the rules and regulations to that public office. It isn't about you and I. It's about how they are supposed to operate that office. The fact that this paperwork gets in and it sits here and tells you very precisely that the Department of Transportation is an executive department of the United States government at the seat of government. Government, not corporation. The jurisdiction of the United States between the state and the place outside the state includes places outside the United States or the United States that affects traffic, trade, transportation described in subclause A of this chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is everything deals with the government. It sits there and tells you that they have to conform. All right, this Title 49, Subtitle 6, Part B, Chapter 331, General Authority, subject to this section and the availability of the amount, the Secretary of Transportation may make grants to the state for the development or implementation of programs for improving motor carrier safety and the enforcement of regulations, standards, and orders of the United States government. Orders of the United States government. Orders of the United States government on commercial motor vehicles. Orders of the United States government, not orders of the corporation. They specifically sit here and named this orders of the government. This is the point. This is the issue. They can't claim private contractors whatever Title 23, 402 under contract and Title 23 CFR under Section 1327 and 1250 requires them to follow the government on this. That's how they're getting their funds, the federal funding. They're getting it under the government, not under the private corporation. But the choice is up to you. We're making this call here tonight specifically to address this very issue. That there is a lot bigger picture here than a lot of you understand. Like I said, it's not just about the driver's license. It is about the fact that proving the corruption and the extent that they will go in order to keep the corruption going, to embezzle the money. And it has to be exposed, and that's what we're exposing. This is what this whole thing has been all about. This is what the IRS is about. We're going back and exposing the bankruptcy. They're coming back in. Well, we're not public officials. Well, if you're not public officials, then you can't drag me into a courtroom. You're not an injured party here. You can't use the state of in that courtroom. If you're not a public official, you cannot use the state of or the United States of America and drag me into that courtroom if you're not part of the system. That's the argument in all of these courtrooms. Your Honor, it is a proven fact that that police officer is not a public official. It is a proven fact that he is a private contractor, and he cannot use the state to come into this courtroom, and he has no authority, because as a private contractor, he only has jurisdiction over those who hire him. And I did not hire this man. He has no authority over me. These are your private contractors. These are arguments that can be start hammering into these courtrooms. And the moment they come back in, oh, well, they are, now we got them under a conflict of law because we got an administrative court says they're not. They're operating under color of law. We can go back and prove it. Like I said, everyone right now in this country who has the ability, who understands what we did, everybody in this country right now has the ability to go bring a color of lawsuit against the DOT, the tag agency, your license bureau that hands you your driver's license, and the police department, and bring a charge against them for fraud. Every one of you have the ability to go back in and open this door up on them. Every one of you have the ability, when you do this, include the 40% to the political subdivision, because when you include the 40% to the political subdivision, you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for your community. Because once you bring the community into this, as a member of that community, that your system is entitled to that 40%, now you've upped the ante on them. It isn't about just you, it's about the entire fraud of them embezzling money out of the system. You have the opportunity here. The paperwork is laid out. Like I said, it doesn't matter what they do at this point in time. It don't matter what they do. The evidence is already out there. The proof is already out there. It's already been documented. It's there for you guys to sit down and use and to go after. Like I said, we got the 10th Circuit ruling, they're corporate appellees. We got the administrative hearing out of North Carolina, they're private entities. We got the paperwork from the Attorney General's office, they're private contractors. We get the paperwork from the city law director that they're private contractors. All we need is 2 for conspiracy. We got 4 for conspiracy. We have the proof. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, each and every one of us is sitting on a RICO on these people. You do the civil rights under Title 42, you do it right, do it proper. That's what EJ is doing. He's getting the paperwork up. We come in and do this properly. We can turn around and bust them under Title 42, and we can go back and prove RICO on all of this because we have them under RICO. Because if the DOT of your state is a private contracting agent and the federal law says they are part of the executive branch of government, you got a private contractor handing you out state property such as a license and a tag in violation of the federal and state laws on how they're supposed to be handed out, and you got the tag agency, right there you got 2. You got the department and you got the agencies in every one of these counties. Now you've got your conspiracy. You got your police officer that's going back and enforcing laws knowing that you're not allowed to have the merchandise that they handed out to you. So now you've got the third one. You got your courts coming in knowing that you don't qualify for this, and they're charging you and they're fining you, and you got the prosecutor and you got your lawyer. You've now got 6 people involved in this thing. You have your conspiracy. You have your RICO. You have the proof of your RICO on this. You have everything you need to go back and prove RICO. It's sitting there. That's why it's taken me a year to go do this. It takes time to prove corruption. This wasn't about going in and winning the suit on a driver's license. It was the means of using the driver's license in order to prove corruption on their side of the fence. It's the means of using the driver's license the way the laws are written to prove how they're misusing the laws and how they're abusing the laws to obtain federal funding based on this fraud. It's taken a year to go prove this. It takes time to prove corruption. This is what a lot of people didn't understand. Well, he didn't win his case. He didn't win it. No, it is right now. It's not about winning as much as it's about proving. And I have won my case. I've proved the corruption. I've proved how far they are willing to go to cover up and lie and falsify documentation. We've got them to admit the crime. We got them to admit it. We got them to put it in writing. We have it on court record. That's the issue. That's the paperwork, proving the corruption. It isn't just about the license, it's about proving the corruption. And that's what so many people have missed. They've missed the fact that we're proving the corruption. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there's a lot more to this than a lot of you realized. And it's too hard to get into this on Tuesdays and Friday nights because we keep being interrupted. And every time I get started, I get cut off. But ladies and gentlemen, that is what this whole case has been about. That's what the IRS case is all about. It's going back in and proving the corruption. We're not saying that they can't give out driver's licenses. They most certainly can because the laws are very clear on this. They can give out driver's licenses. They can give out registrations. It is required for those that are in these fields to obtain it. That's the same thing with the IRS. They can collect taxes for those people that are in that position. But see, even right now, today, since 1933, unless these people received gold and silver and they have received wages based on real money, these judges have never been paid. The police officers never been paid. No public official has legally been paid unless they have been given gold or silver instead of a Federal Reserve note. If they've been given gold and silver, yes, now they owe taxes on this. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there's a lot bigger picture here, a lot bigger picture. It's about exposing the corruption. It's about exposing the fraud. The driver's license was the catalyst to get this thing started. It's easy to go back and prove that you don't have to have because the laws are there. The Supreme Court decisions are there. But it takes more to go back and expose the federal funding fraud. But you had to use this in order to obtain that federal funding fraud. So I hope this gives you a little clearer explanation of what we did, why we're doing it, what we're doing, and how we're doing it. So ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you to do what we're doing and to sit down and keep this thing rolling. It is up to you to sit down and run with this. I've opened up the door. I have opened up for the ability to you go do this. And ladies and gentlemen, like I said, it's your opportunity here. Do not sit here and waste it. Do not let it go by. Take your opportunity and go do it. So for that, I'm going to tell you good night. This is going to be just a short show. But you need to understand what was the basis behind the North Carolina driver's license issue. It isn't just about the license, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot bigger picture. it isn't just about the license, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot bigger picture, a lot bigger picture. And that's something that you need to be aware of. The door is open. I have opened up this door for all of you who have the ability to understand and go fight this thing. Because, like I said, when they classified the police officers as private contractors, that just wasn't for traffic stops. That was for every realm that you will ever have to deal with these people out here in the street. Every realm.